Hello and welcome to Millennium News Hour. I am Tanziba Nawreen. In today's bulletin, we will present top and trending news from across the nation and the world. Let's begin with the headlines of the day. Biden attends memorial mass to mark 8 years since son Bo's death from brain cancer. Four minors, five adults injured in shooting at Florida beach. Elizabeth Holmes enters Texas prison to begin 11-year sentence for notorious blood testing hoax. Facing GOP backlash, McCarthy labors to shore up votes for debt deal in time to prevent US default. Former First Lady Rosalynn Carter has dementia, the Carter Center says. Woman who threatened Nancy Pelosi with hanging during Capitol riot gets over 2 years in prison. Biden to host UK Prime Minister Sunak next week for talks on Ukraine climate. US says the time is now for Sweden to join NATO and for Turkey to get new F-16s. Tesla's Musk meets Chinese foreign minister who calls for mutual respect in US-China relations. Moscow drone attack exposes Russia's vulnerabilities, fuels criticism of military. China declines meeting between defense chiefs with US. China launches new crew for space station with eye to putting astronauts on moon before 2030. At least 10 dead, 55 injured as bus of Hindu pilgrims falls into gorge in Indian-controlled Kashmir. Brazil president proposes South America currency as he hosts summit to rebuild regional bloc. French Open's number 2 seed Daniil Medvedev loses to 172nd ranked qualifier Thiago Seyboth Wild. And Bob Myers departing as Warriors president GM after 4 NBA titles, 11 seasons. You were listening to headlines, now news in details. President Joe Biden marked Tuesday's 8th anniversary of one of the saddest days of his life, the death of his son Bo, by attending a memorial mass and visiting his gravesite. Biden, his wife Jill, and other family members prayed for Bo Biden during the mass at St. Joseph on the Brandywine, the Roman Catholic church where the president worships during weekends at his home near Wilmington, Delaware. Afterward, the family visited Bo Biden's gravesite in the church cemetery. The First Lady carried a bouquet of flowers. The president later traveled to Veterans Memorial Park in Newcastle for his annual tradition of paying his respects and laying flowers. Bo Biden was 46 when he died of brain cancer in 2015. His father was vice president. The eldest of Biden's 3 children, Bo Biden served 2 terms as Delaware Attorney General before declaring a run for governor. Many saw in him the same aspirations that brought his father to the White House. In fact, Joe Biden often says his son is the one who should have been president, not him. Bo Biden also served in Delaware's Army National Guard, including a deployment to Iraq, where the president says he was exposed to toxic gases from pits where the military burned waste. Biden has linked his son's cancer to his exposure to burn pits. Beau Biden is the son of Joe Biden and his late first wife, Nelia, who was killed in a 1972 car crash that gravely injured Beau and younger brother Hunter and killed their baby sister. 9 people were injured when gunfire erupted along a beachside promenade in Hollywood, Florida, sending people frantically running for cover along the crowded beach during the Memorial Day holiday in the United States. Several of those wounded on Monday evening were taken to a children's hospital, police spokesperson Diana Bettineschi said. Bettineschi said 4 minors aged between 1 and 17 were hit, along with 5 adults between 25 and 65. One was in surgery late on Monday night while the others were stable, she said. The shooting happened shortly before 7 p.m. when a fight broke out and at least one gun was pulled and shots were fired. At least one person was in custody, but police were looking for more suspects. Police Chief Chris O'Brien said thousands of people were in the area and dozens of police officers responded, including some who were nearby. Police launched a search Tuesday for 3 suspects they believe to be the gunmen who opened fire. Theranos founder Elizabeth Holmes entered Texas prison, where she could spend the next 11 years for overseeing a blood testing hoax that became a parable about greed and hubris in Silicon Valley. Holmes on Tuesday entered a federal women's prison camp located in Bryan, Texas, where the federal judge who sentenced Holmes in November recommended she be incarcerated. The minimum security facility is about 95 miles northwest of Houston, where Holmes grew up aspiring to become a technology visionary along the lines of Apple co-founder Steve Jobs. As she begins her sentence, Holmes is leaving behind 2 young children, a son born in July 2021, a few weeks before the start of her trial, and a 3-month-old daughter who was conceived after a jury convicted her on 4 felony counts of fraud and conspiracy in January 2022. Holmes was free on bail up until Tuesday, most recently living in the San Diego area with the children's father, William Billy Evans. The couple met in 2017. Around the same time, Holmes was under investigation for the collapse of Theranos, a startup she founded after dropping out of Stanford University when she was just 19. Under fire from conservatives, House Speaker Kevin McCarthy worked strenuously Tuesday to sell fellow Republicans on the debt ceiling and budget deal he negotiated with President Joe Biden and win approval in time to avert a potentially disastrous U.S. default. Leaders of the hard-right House Freedom Caucus lambasted the compromise as falling well short of the spending cuts they demand, and they vowed to try to halt passage by Congress. A much larger conservative faction, the Republican Study Committee, declined to take a position, leaving McCarthy hunting votes. With tough days ahead, the Speaker urged skeptical GOP colleagues to look at where the victories are, unhelpfully for Biden. He said of the Democrats on Fox and Friends, there is nothing in the bill for them. A key test was coming late Tuesday when the House Rules Committee was to consider the 99-page bill and vote on sending it to the full House for a vote expected Wednesday evening. Quick approval by both the House and Senate would ensure government checks will continue to go out to Social Security recipients, veterans, and others, and prevent financial upheaval worldwide by allowing Treasury to keep paying U.S. debts. The deal would restrict spending over the next 2 years, but it includes environmental policy changes and expanded work requirements for some older food aid recipients that Democrats strongly oppose. Former First Lady Rosalynn Carter has dementia, her family announced Tuesday. Carter, now 95, remains at home with former President Jimmy Carter, who has been at home receiving hospice care since early this year. She continues to live happily at home with her husband, enjoying spring in planes and visits with loved ones. The family said via the Carter Center, the global humanitarian organization the couple founded in 1982, less than 2 years after Jimmy Carter's landslide defeat. Married nearly 77 years, the Carters are the longest married first couple in U.S. history. The family noted in its statement that Rosalind Carter has spent her long public life advocating for individuals and families affected by mental illness and for those in caregiving relationships with loved ones. The Carters have been visiting only with family and close friends since the former president's announcement in February that he would forego further medical intervention after a series of short hospital stays. The family has not disclosed any specific diagnosis for either the former president or the former First Lady. The statement Tuesday said the Carter family would have no further comment. A Pennsylvania restaurant owner who screamed death threats directed at then House Speaker Nancy Pelosi while storming the U.S. Capitol was sentenced on Tuesday to more than 2 years in prison. Pauline Bauer was near Pelosi's office suit on January 6, 2021, when she yelled at police officers to bring out the California Democrats so the mob of Donald Trump supporters could hang her. In January, U.S. District Judge Trevor McFadden convicted Bauer of riot-related charges after hearing trial testimony without a jury. The judge sentenced her to 2 years and 3 months of imprisonment, giving her credit for the several months she already has served in jail, court records show. Prosecutors had recommended a prison sentence of 6 years and 6 months for Bauer of Kane, Pennsylvania. Bauer was part of the mob that forced police officers on the East Plaza to retreat. After forcing her way into the Capitol, she accosted officers who were trying to secure the rotunda, shoving one of them, and yelled at police to bring them out or we are coming in, according to federal prosecutors. President Joe Biden will host British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak at the White House next week for talks on Ukraine, climate issues, and more. Sunak is slated to visit Washington on June 7 to 8 and will also meet with U.S. lawmakers and business leaders, in addition to his Oval Office meeting next Thursday with Biden. The meeting comes after the White House announced earlier this month that Biden was endorsing an international effort forged by the UK and other alliances to train and eventually equip Ukraine with the F-16 fighter jets that President Vladimir Zelensky has long sought. Biden is scheduled to meet with Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen of Denmark, another key partner in the F-16 effort, on Monday. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said in a statement that the two leaders are also expected the US-UK economic relationship and developments in Northern Ireland. British officials downplayed hopes that the visit would produce significant action toward forging a new US-UK trade agreement, which the British government accepts is dead for now. Sunak spokesman Max Blaine said he wouldn't expect either side to be pushing for that, adding, "We are not seeking to pursue a free trade deal with the US currently." U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Tuesday the time is now for Turkey to drop its objections to Sweden joining NATO, but said the Biden administration also believed that Turkey should be provided with upgraded F-16 fighters as soon as possible. Blinken maintained that the administration had not linked the two issues but acknowledged that some U.S. lawmakers had. President Joe Biden implicitly linked the two issues in a phone call to Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan on Monday. "I spoke to Erdogan and he still wants to work on something on the F-16s. I told him we wanted a deal with Sweden, so let's get that done," Biden said. Still, Blinken insisted the two issues were distinct. However, he stressed that the completion of both would dramatically strengthen European security. Both of these are vital in our judgment to European security, Blinken told reporters at a joint news conference in the northern Swedish city of Luleå with Sweden's Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson. We believe that both should go forward as quickly as possible, that is to say, Sweden's accession and moving forward on the F-16 package more broadly. China's foreign minister met Tesla Limited CEO Elon Musk on Tuesday and said strained US-Chinese relations require mutual respect while delivering a message of reassurance that foreign companies are welcome. US-Chinese relations are especially tense after Washington shot down a Chinese balloon believed to be gathering intelligence and warned Beijing against supplying arms to Russia for its war against Ukraine. The Wall Street Journal reported China has rejected a request for its defense minister to meet the US Defense Secretary when both are in Singapore this weekend. We need to keep the steering wheel in the right direction of mutual respect, peaceful coexistence, and win-win cooperation, Qin Gang told Musk, according to a ministry statement. The two sides should avoid dangerous driving, Qin said. He gave no details of steps to improve relations. Musk's visit comes at a time when the ruling Communist Party is trying to revive investor interest in China's slowing economy. Foreign companies are uneasy following raids on consulting firms and given the strained Chinese relations with Washington. Now it's time for global updates. A drone attack that targeted Moscow on Tuesday exposed glaring breaches in its air defenses and underlined the capital's vulnerability as more Russian soil comes under fire amid expectations of a Ukrainian counter-offensive. The attack, which lightly damaged 3 apartment buildings, angered Russia's hawks, who scathingly criticized President Vladimir Putin and the military brass for failing to protect the heart of Kremlin power more than 500 kilometers from the front line. 5 of the 8 drones that took part in the raid were shot down, the defense ministry said, while 3 others were jammed and forced to veer off course. Some Russian media and bloggers alleged a larger number of drones were involved, but those claims couldn't be verified. The attack followed a May 3 drone strike on the Kremlin that lightly damaged the roof of the palace that includes one of Putin's official residences. Other drones have crashed near Moscow in what Russian authorities described as botched Ukrainian attempts to attack the city and infrastructure facilities in the suburb. China has declined a US invitation for a meeting in Singapore between Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin and his Chinese counterpart Li Shangfu. Beijing's foreign ministry on Tuesday blamed the United States for its decision, claiming Washington was well aware of the reasons behind the lack of military communication. The US side should immediately correct its wrong practices, show sincerity, and create the necessary atmosphere and conditions for dialogue and communication between the two militaries, Foreign Ministry spokesperson Mao Ning told reporters at a briefing. Pentagon spokesman Brigadier General Pat Ryder said in a statement on Monday, the People's Republic of China declined our early May invitation for the two military chiefs to meet in Singapore. The PRC's concerning unwillingness to engage in meaningful military-to-military discussions will not diminish the Defense Department's commitment to seeking open lines of communication with the People's Liberation Army, Ryder added. Last week, White House spokesman John Kirby said there were discussions underway to initiate talks between Austin and his Chinese counterpart, who was named defense minister in March. China launched a new 3-person crew for its orbiting space station on Tuesday, with an eye to putting astronauts on the moon before the end of the decade. The Shenzhou 16 spacecraft lifted off from the Jiuquan Launch Center on the edge of the Gobi Desert in northwestern China atop a long March 2F rocket just after 9:30 a.m. Tuesday. The crew, including China's first civilian astronaut, will overlap briefly with three now aboard the Tiangong station, who will then return to Earth after completing their 6-month mission. A third module was added to the station in November, and space program officials on Monday said they have plans to expand it, along with launching a crewed mission to the moon before 2030. China built its own space station after it was excluded from the International Space Station, largely due to US concerns over the Chinese space program's intimate ties with the People's Liberation Army, the military branch of the ruling Communist Party. A bus carrying Hindu pilgrims to a shrine in Indian-controlled Kashmir skidded off a highway bridge into a Himalayan gorge Tuesday, killing at least 10 people and injuring 55, police said. The bus was on the way to Katra town from the northern state of Punjab's Amritsar city when it fell into the gorge near Jammu city, police said. Local police officer Chandan Kohli told reporters that the bus was overloaded. He said the dead were from India's eastern Bihar state. Residents and authorities rushed to the accident and launched a rescue operation. The injured have been hospitalized. The shrine of Vaishno Devi in Katra is highly revered by Hindus and hundreds of thousands visit it every year. India has some of the highest road death rates in the world, with hundreds of thousands of people killed and injured annually. Most crashes are blamed on reckless driving, poorly maintained roads, and aging vehicles. Brazil's president proposed the creation of a regional trade currency to rival the US dollar on Tuesday, as he hosted a regional summit in a bid to revive a bloc of South America's 12 politically polarized countries. The Union of South American Nations was launched in 2008 to boost cooperation, but became largely defunct about a decade later in disputes over leadership. Countries with right-leaning leaders at the time, including Brazil, saw the bloc as having a leftist bent and objected especially to the inclusion of Venezuela's authoritarian leftist president Nicolas Maduro. Brazil's new leftist president Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has proposed restarting the bloc now that the region has a greater number of leftist and centrist leaders. He called a South America summit in Brasilia that has drawn all but one of the region's presidents. In his opening speech, Lula said the group should discuss creating a currency to challenge the hegemony of the US dollar, as well as a common energy market and integration of the region's defense and security. Now it's time for business news. Today's New York stock close price is 14,994.64. The NYSE Composite is decreased by 84.05 points or 0.56%. Tokyo stock close price is 31,328.16. The Nikkei 225 index is increased by 94.62 points or 0.30%. Shanghai stock close price is 3,224.21. The Shanghai index is increased by 2.76 points or 0.09%. Hong Kong stock close price is 18,595.78. The Hang Seng index is increased by 44.67 points or 0.24%. Bombay stock close price is 62,969.13. The Sensex index is increased by 122.75 points or 0.20%. Let's have a look on today's sports stories. Daniil Medvedev was seeded number 2 at the French Open, coming off a clay court title a little more than a week ago, too. Plus, he already owns one Grand Slam trophy and was a finalist 3 other times. And his opponent Tuesday in the first round at Roland Garros, well, Thiago Seybold Wild, a 23-year-old from Brazil, is ranked just 172nd and was playing only his second match in the main draw of any major tournament. He needed to win 3 matches in qualifying rounds last week just to make it into the men's bracket, something he had failed to do on 8 previous attempts at slams. Sometimes the numbers just don't matter, nor does past experience. The winner of a tennis match tends to be whoever was better that day, no matter how surprising that might be. Seybold Wild looked very much like he belonged on court. Philippe Chatrier hitting big forehands and keeping his nerve down the stretch to oust Medvedev 7-6, 6-7, 2-6, 6-3, 6-4. Bob Myers is departing as president and general manager of the Golden State Warriors after building a championship team that captured 4 titles in an 8-year span and reached 5 straight NBA Finals from 2015 to 19, one of the most successful GMs over the past decade in any sport. Myers' contract was set to expire in late June, and there has been a speculation for months about his future, given the sides had yet to reach agreement on an extension or a new deal. A team spokesman confirmed the departure Tuesday. The 48-year-old Myers grew up in suburban Danville, played basketball at UCLA, and learned key skills on the other side of the business when he became an agent before switching careers and emerging as a top NBA executive with a personable nature who regularly attended practices to chat with players, coach Steve Kerr, and his assistants. Kerr has loved working alongside Myers in a collaborative way, something that can be unusual in professional sports between the front office and head coach. Kerr said the week after the season ended that decisions about whether to keep the roster together weren't his to make. Let's have a look on today's weather forecast. That's all in today's news. Keep watching Millennium News 24 for latest update. Millennium TV USA and Millennium News 24 network is transmitted and available to be watched free for all at TVs such as Sony, Samsung, LG, Roku TV, Amazon TV and Apple TV. And also in all European countries and Australia available with the Sky Network, Worldwide Jago TV, Radiant IPTV, Worldwide Jago BD Network and Horizon Satellite globally. Stay connected with us for all types of informative and entertainment program. Thank you.